Imagine a moment of deep silence. You walk into a crowded room. No one turns their head, no one greets you. And then slowly all eyes begin to fall upon you. Not because you tried to draw attention, not because you dressed to impress, but because your very presence speaks something that cannot be named yet cannot be ignored. Carl Jung once said, "Where your fear is, there is your task." In truth, what makes a woman captivating is not the absence of fear, but that she does not let fear lead her. We live in an age where women are told to be successful, perfect, and strong, but rarely shown how to be truly original. Society teaches you how to speak, how to dress, how to be liked, but it does not teach you how to trust yourself when no one is there to cheer you on. And that is why the emptiness comes even after doing everything right, because you have wandered far from your primal self. The truth is, real confidence is not the volume of your voice in a meeting. It is the whisper inside that does not tremble even when you stand in the land of doubt. It is the kind of confidence that asks for no validation, for it is born from a deeper source where light meets shadow, where the soul no longer separates from its essence. That woman you once admired from afar, she was not without wounds, but she chose not to be led by them any longer. She made peace with her shadow, and from that union, the energy of the goddess began to awaken. In today's video, we will not speak of how to fake confidence or how to mold yourself into a flawless version. We will go deeper into the realm Jung called the unconscious to rediscover the part of your soul you once abandoned. Are you ready? The next part will unveil the true secret of self-rust, that invisible energy, which allows a woman to stand strong, not because others believe in her, but because she has learned never to abandon herself. Have you ever felt like you were living a role? Smiling when inside you wanted to cry, nodding when your heart longed to scream no? If so, you are not alone. Carl Jung called this the persona, the psychological mask we wear to survive in a society full of shoulds and musts. The persona is not evil. In fact, it is necessary. It helps us survive, connect, and adapt. The danger arises when we forget that we are wearing a mask, when it clings so tightly that we begin to believe it is our true face. The perfect woman, always cheerful, accomplished, agreeable, may be crumbling inside because she has never been allowed to simply be herself. She does not cry in public, does not show anger, does not fall apart because she fears that if she is not perfect, she will not be loved. But the cost of maintaining the persona is that the shadow grows silently in the depths. According to Jung, the shadow is that part of ourselves we deny, repress, or refuse to confront. It may be anger suppressed since childhood, a fear of failure we never acknowledge, or even the longing for love we feel ashamed to admit. The problem is not that we have a shadow, we all do. The problem is that when we refuse to face it, it begins to control us from the unconscious. Have you ever lashed out at someone and later regretted it, or felt envy without knowing why? Perhaps it was not you, but the voice of your shadow calling for recognition. Jung once wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." The painful truth is that many women who appear strong are actually living from a persona built on wounds, constantly proving they are good enough, smart enough, worthy enough, only to avoid the fear of rejection or abandonment. But no one can be truly confident without first daring to walk into the darkness within. So what is to be done? Jung never told us to destroy the shadow. He invited us to befriend it, to face the ugly, selfish, fragile parts of ourselves, not to judge them, but to understand them. For in that darkness lies hidden life force, libido, creativity, the capacity to love, courage itself. When a woman dares to face her shadow, she is no longer vulnerable to the gaze of others, for she has accepted the worst in herself and still chosen to love that self. This is the foundation of self-trust and unconditional confidence that no one can take away. And here lies the miracle. When you begin to reconcile with your shadow, you do not only free yourself, you create space for other women to be their true selves as well. You become a point of energy, a small flame for those still wandering in the night. Imagine a community of women, not comparing, not criticizing, not competing, but standing together to remove the persona, to name their shadows, to reclaim their light. Such a community is being formed, and you are invited to join. In the description below, you will find a link to our group where we learn together to listen to the shadow and awaken the light. If something is stirring in your heart right now, write it down. A sentence, a question, a single share. Let it remind you that you are on the path, Comment below, I am beginning to listen to my shadow. In the next part, we will go deeper into the process Jung called individuation, the return to the true self beyond the persona, through the shadow into the awakening of the goddess within. This journey is not for those who wish to live easily, it is for those who wish to live truly. Are you ready? There is a paradox few dare to admit. The moments when you feel most fragile, most lost, are often the very threshold of awakening. And yet instead of stepping through, most of us turn back. Why? Because on the other side of that door lies a world where no one applauds, no one leads the way. There is only one person you must learn to trust: yourself. Carl Jung called this the shift from the dependent self to the autonomous self, the moment when you no longer ask the world, am I good enough? But begin to ask yourself, who am I beyond all these labels? This is the second stage of the journey back to the primal self, where we strip away the constraints of the persona and confront something deeper, the wounded self. A woman living from her wounded self does not always look weak. She may wear the blazer, sit in the boardroom, smile brightly in photos. But inside she carries a constant fear. Will I be left behind? Am I worthy of being loved? These questions do not scream. They whisper in the unconscious like background music, shaping every choice. How she treats her partner, her friends, even how she neglects her own needs in order to please others. Jung called these buried emotions complexes, fragments of memory that were never integrated, pushed deep into the psyche, yet still alive, as if they happened yesterday. And the danger is this: if unrecognized complexes repeat themselves, they appear in the same wrong relationships, the same fear of rejection, the same inability to set boundaries. Pause for a moment, breathe deeply, and ask yourself with honesty, how many times have you said yes when your heart was shouting no? How many times have you laughed to hide tears pressing at the surface? How many times have you whispered inside, why do I feel so empty? You don't need to answer now, but know this: every time you betray your true feelings, you reinforce the belief that my voice does not matter. That is why Jung insisted healing begins not with a book or a therapy session, but with a single act of honesty. Perhaps the first time you dare to write in your journal, I feel lonely, or as simple as admitting I am tired. Mini hook. You cannot heal what you refuse to name, and you cannot feel confident while running from yourself. From that honesty, something miraculous begins to spark trust. Not trust in others, but trust that your own inner voice deserves to be heard. This is the essence of self-trust, the core this video will help you uncover. To do that, you must relearn a forgotten skill: listening to the body. Jung believed the body is not merely a vessel for the soul, it is the place where the soul speaks. When your throat tightens, when your chest feels heavy, when your sleep is restless, these are not just health issues. They are the cries of an abandoned part of your psyche. Try something simple the next time you must decide. Instead of asking others, ask your body. Place a hand on your chest and whisper, if I say yes, does my body feel lighter or heavier? The answer is always there, not in logic, but in sensation. This leads us to something vital: intuitive confidence. A woman who lives with intuitive confidence does not always know in advance what is right, but she listens and acts upon what she feels. Over time, she becomes more accurate, not because she is perfect, but because she has stopped betraying herself. Now imagine a community where you don't need to pretend you're fine, where you don't need to be positive all the time, where you don't need to win every race. A community where tears are not weakness and choosing solitude is not strange. That community is being built, a space where we can share, reflect, and walk together. If you long to be heard, to share without being judged, the link is in the description below. Don't hesitate to leave a note: I am learning to hear my inner voice. In the next part, we will explore what Jung called individuation, the integration of light and shadow, of the rational self and the primal self. If you have ever felt like you are living half a life, or that something is missing even when you seem to have it all, this next part will be the mirror that reveals the forgotten pieces. And remember, you do not need to heal today. You only need to begin looking within. That alone is already a revolutionary act. Have you ever felt as if you were standing at the edge between the old and the new, between a life programmed from the outside and a life waiting to be named from within? Carl Jung called this the threshold of individuation, the becoming whole. It is the moment when the ego no longer performs like an actor behind a mask, and the shadow no longer rules as an enemy, but begins to walk with us as a companion. Where do you stand today, still outside in the world of shoulds, or courageous enough to step into the inner world of I am? In the last part, we met the shadow, the rejected self and the wounded self, the fractured self longing to be heard. Now we step into the next scene of the journey, where consciousness begins to meet the unconscious and light and darkness start to move in rhythm. Jung called this the path toward the self, the true self symbol of the whole soul, not merely who you think you are, but what he described as a circle with a dot in the center. The ego is just one small point. Most of who you are is the vast web of interconnection. When the ego steps back, the shadow appears, the anima, not animus, awakens, and finally what Jung called the mana figure, the wise inner presence, emerges to reveal a greater image of who you are. This is not a comfortable process. It is an act of courage to love, even the darkness, to accept failure, to embrace the wounds. Picture this: you stand before a mirror. You do not just see your age, your face, your achievements. You see a being who has been silenced, bruised, overlooked, and you say, I see you. I accept you. That is the moment the individuation journey begins. You don't need advanced psychology to begin. All it takes is the honesty to write, I am afraid. I am sad. I don't understand myself. Even whispering this to yourself is a revolutionary act. This is the first foundation for the self, not the social mask, but the whole self to emerge. Have you ever said to yourself, I don't know who I am? Now imagine a community, not one where you must become someone else, but where you can simply be yourself. A circle where vulnerability is welcomed as a sign of a new beginning. A place where healing happens not because of theory, but because we truly see one another. If you are ready to let your wounds become a map toward the light, you are invited to join our community. The link is in the description. Write a single sentence. I am ready for the next step, even if I am afraid. That is how you plant a seed of courage, not alone, but together, walking toward the light. For when many step onto the path of individuation, something miraculous happens. It is not that you become perfect, you become whole. The path is not about removing every stone, but learning to walk with them with an open heart. Jung once wrote, individuation is not only a personal process, but the way we return to wholeness within the community, not isolated individuals, but living connections. So where are you on this path? Have you felt the unconscious touching your inner voice? Have you tried active imagination, inviting dream images, emotions, or art to speak back to you? Jung called this the bridge between unconscious and conscious, the way we commune with the deepest parts of ourselves without interruption. Together, we are exploring a truth. Self-trust does not come from resisting the world, but from reconciling with the self. Here you affirm who you are, not because the world approves, but because you have returned to the center of your soul. In the next part, we will explore practical ways to nurture the self, not forcing yourself into standards, but creating habits that deepen trust in yourself each day. Not because others believe in you, but because you have come home to your center. Are you ready to take the next step? Have you ever felt a subtle vibration, like an echo from the soul, yet impossible to name? Perhaps it was the whisper of the self, the deepest core within you, that Jung called the archetype of wholeness. The self is not merely the personal ego, but the original spirit where the unconscious and the conscious, light and shadow, converge, and where true wholeness can be born. Today's question: have you given yourself a space to speak? In our last part, we explored how to face the shadow, step beyond the persona, and open the path of individuation, a journey toward the fuller self. Now let us go deeper into that inner ground, the quiet practice of nurturing the self, not through force, but through cultivating authentic presence each day. The self is not born in grand awakenings. It reveals itself in small, silent moments when you dare to say, I am tired. When you place a hand on your heart to feel instead of suppress. When you allow the darkness to be named and witness the light shining through the crack, that is when the self begins to appear. Carl Jung practiced active imagination as a bridge between the corridors of the unconscious and the conscious world. He called it a dialogue with the soul, bringing dream images and symbols into awareness and beginning to converse with them. You don't need to be an artist or poet. Simply close your eyes, relax, and ask, what are you within me? Then wait for an image, a feeling, or a symbol to arise. A flower half closed, a wild wolf, a circle of light, and simply sit with it. Do not rush to analyze. Do not dismiss it. Let the image speak. Jung warned that active imagination is not idle daydreaming. It requires a quiet, receptive attitude. Sometimes it feels messy, but even in the mess, the unconscious brings forth what you most need to hear. Why is this essential? Because once the persona softens and the shadow is recognized, the rational ego alone is no longer enough to govern the psyche. You need a deeper center, a spiritual anchor, the self. The self is not just awareness. It is the state of being heard, of being rooted in inner stillness. When you trust the self, the outer world may shift and change, but you remain steady. That is the essence of self-trust and unshakable confidence in your own being. But perhaps you don't want to just understand this. You want to feel it, live it. That is why I invite you to imagine a circle of people, not only talking about this journey, but silently witnessing each other, gently reminding one another to stand with the self. If you long for such a space where you can say, I am touching myself, even if faintly, without fear of doubt, look for the link below to join our community. Write a simple line, I am learning to hear the self. When many of us walk this path together, the self ceases to be a lonely spark. It becomes a living field of energy that spreads quietly. Jung called this the ripple of healing. When one person listens to their self, at least one other begins their own awakening. Do you hear that call within you, the invitation to return to yourself? In our closing chapter, we will explore daily practices for nurturing the self, small gestures that anchor the soul, writing a single line in your journal, keeping one small promise to yourself, feeding intuition through creativity, or asking your dreams a question. These are not dramatic acts, but quiet revolutions, acts that allow the self not only to be heard, but to grow and live in every breath. Stay close, because tomorrow you may begin to see power in the simplest of things. Do you remember the first time you felt a subtle stirring, like a faint echo from within that you couldn't quite name? That is the invitation of the inner reality, a gentle reminder that shakes the soul. And now let us take the next step into the practice of nurturing the self, a simple yet profound way of reshaping life from the inside out. Have you given yourself a place to speak today? For Jung, individuation is not a race to be faster or better. It is a quiet, gradual journey where the simplest acts, journaling, breathing, observing your dreams, reveal, I am not just a role, I am life itself. Here we do not chase miracles. We trust the repetition of small gestures, keeping promises to ourselves until inner trust grows. One of Jung's most powerful methods was active imagination, a silent dialogue with inner images. Like Jung himself did in his Black Books, you can open a notebook and allow the images of your unconscious to emerge without judgment, simply listening. This is not idle daydreaming, but a language of the unconscious, speaking through symbols, signs, and emotional colors. Today, many turn to shadow work journaling prompts, gentle questions like, which part of myself do I find most uncomfortable? When I criticize others, is it because I carry the same trait inside? Such practices let light seep into the hidden corners. As Very Well Mind describes, shadow work involves delving into the hidden parts of our psyche to gain self-understanding, heal past wounds, and improve relationships. Yes, it is not easy to face the shadow, but think of it like touching a wound in order to heal. When you write, I feel not enough, or I am afraid of rejection, you are not weak, you are reclaiming a forgotten fragment of yourself. Every time you ask, why did I react this way? Or what lies beneath my anger, you are doing Jung's work, expanding self-awareness beyond the surface. Have you ever written in your journal, I don't know who I am, and felt in that moment, seen by your own self? We are not just isolated individuals, we are a community of souls. When you write, I am hurting and I keep walking, you not only touch yourself, you touch many others. That is why I invite you, if you wish to walk further, to share the path with silent but steady hearts. Join the community in the link below. Even a simple line, I am on the journey of reminding myself I am worthy, can plant a seed. You don't have to walk alone. The journey of the self has no final point, only moments of revelation, those sudden ahas when you feel no longer fragmented. Jung said the self is the symbol of wholeness, not you today, not you tomorrow, but you from root to crown. Active imagination, shadow work. Small daily promises, all are the bricks that build the house of the soul. So let me ask again, have you given the self a place in your day-to-day? In our next part, we will explore how ordinary actions can become sacred practices, morning rituals, small promises kept, a slow breath in the middle of the day, or even writing, I'm sorry to yourself. These are the gestures that allow the self not only to be heard, but to grow moment by moment, breath by breath. Stay with me because the greatest transformations often begin with the smallest steps. Have you ever wondered what happens when you not only understand your inner darkness, but also begin to keep promises to it? Jung said, individuation is not just about discovery. It is an act, the act of befriending the shadow, the act of listening to the unconscious, the act of holding on to yourself. And it is through these small, unwavering acts day after day that inner trust, self-trust is built. Have you kept one promise to yourself today? So far, you have walked through the fragmented states of awareness, persona, shadow, anima. Animus, and now the self begins to emerge. But the self is not created by theory, it is built through concrete action. Each time you say, today I rest, today I won't pretend to be fine. Today I will listen to my body, you are laying down the bridge where the rational mind and the primal soul can meet. Jung once described the self as a mandala, a circle holding both light and dark, the center through which the ego rises into wholeness and health. Today, shadow work has become popular, but the real question is, how do you move beyond TikTok trends and endless journal prompts into something deeply personal, something that heals and restores wholeness? Many use shadow journaling to name rejected parts, explore how wounds shape behavior, and reclaim identity. Allure. Psychology today reminds us that shadow work is not just about discovery, but about facing the unconscious to grow in self-awareness, heal wounds, and improve relationships. But Jung warned the path requires consistency, not just facing, but sustaining. You cannot borrow a journal prompt one day and toss it aside the next. Self-trust is not born from a single aha moment. It is born from keeping a single promise, turning off your phone early tonight, writing for 5 minutes in your journal in the morning, or saying no when something makes your spirit shrink. Have you done one small thing today, just for yourself, to affirm I am worthy of being heard? Now imagine if you and I and many others kept such small promises. You would not walk alone. You would be flowing with an unseen community where someone else is also writing, I am learning to say no to expectations that drain me. A space where you are not judged but strengthened. I invite you, if you want to continue this journey, follow the link in the description and share a simple line, I am keeping a promise to myself, even a small one. That is how you plant an inner seed, one that grows not only for you but for others stepping toward their self. Remember, Jung did not aim to restore the ideal human. He said the self is both light and dark, yet not limited to either the union of opposites, which means you do not need to erase your wounds or suppress your shadows. You need only to stand with them, see clearly, and keep walking in wholeness. The truth is, when more people begin to honor their inner voice, not for others but for themselves, the self ceases to be a myth. It becomes a living energy constantly renewed. You are not becoming perfect, you are becoming whole. Have you chosen wholeness over perfection today? In the closing chapter ahead, we will turn to the daily practice of nurturing the self through simple sacred presence. Writing one line, I love myself today. Recognizing I am tired and I am allowed to rest, or pausing for a single breath that touches the heart. If you can hold on to these gestures, your self-trust becomes unshakable. And this will be the foundation for a life not only strong, but deeply kind toward yourself. Stay with me, because at the end of this journey, you will not just find the self, you will become the living self, breathing, loving, healing. Did you know that sometimes a video doesn't end the way you close a book? But in the moment you pick up a fragment of yourself and feel the urge to write a new chapter? This ending is not a full stop, it is an invitation forward. Not only to listen, but to become yourself day by day. If there is one thing to carry with you when this video ends, let it be this. Self-trust is not a destination, but a journey we are walking together. Each time you dare to face the darkness, each time you whisper, I am worthy of love, even when I am not perfect, you are planting the seeds of a self that is strong, tender, and true. Let me leave you with a simple image. The firebird is not only born from ashes, it endures through persistence. Your self is the same, born from moments when you choose honesty with yourself, even when it is hard. And every time you keep a promise to yourself, no matter how small, you are building an inner temple no one can take away. Do you feel it, that you are returning to yourself not as a role performed, but as sacred ground that has never been lost? You, holding your soul in both hands, know that survival does not require shouting. It requires wholeness. So do one small but essential act, leave a comment, not to be perfect, but to affirm I am on the journey of returning to myself. That single line is not only your Tracy, it is your reminder and a small flame for someone else still wandering in the dark. If this video touched something in you, you may want to return here again and again. Just tap subscribe, not to follow, but to help keep this space alive. A space where we learn to be strong and kind, to walk gently, and to honor the path back to the self. And remember, if you are still here reading these words, it means you have not stopped. You are still moving toward yourself with reverence for every crack and fracture inside you. This ending is not an ending, it is a promise. A promise to meet you again, to keep listening, to keep sharing, to keep living in truth. So come comment, subscribe, but above all, hold on to yourself in the gentlest way. Until we meet again, may your heart grow quieter and your soul more whole with each passing day.